Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining me today. I'm going to do a reading. Today is the 13th, Friday the 13th. I woke up this morning having a lot of clarity around the energy. I haven't really had a lot of clarity. I've kind of been like in the washer and just been going through it like everybody else. And this morning, just like all these downloads, and then had a major powwow today with a dear kindred soul sister, and everything kind of rearranged. I didn't think I was going to have time to do a reading this week, but here it is. Everything kind of opened up. So I am going to dive right into the cards, even though I understand this energy right now, because it's just more fun to do a puppet show while I talk. So I already had a card fall out. It's really interesting because the card that we get is the Moth Spirit, Surrender Now. Okay, and that is a 9, 10, 11, 12, a 12 card, a card of mastery. So okay, so one of the things that really decoded for me this morning is last week, I had this conversation. I'm going to have to manage the light a little bit. I had this conversation with this person, and so he was telling me about this dog that kept attacking cyclists. It was this dog, and it wasn't restrained. And then it turns out his owners were addicts. They had so that's how this relates. This is the moth to the flame. Where it's like our addictions, right? The things that we're addicted to, when we're looking outside of ourselves to fill the void outside of ourselves. So this is not surprising me that this is coming up as the overall energy. So, anyways, telling me about this dog and these people, and I haven't been sleeping well, so I was up in the middle of the night when I read this, and I was in this real liminal space, and I started feeling into, here comes Jeremy, I started feeling into the energy of that, and the energy of addiction, and the energy of the field that gets put around us when we're in that energy, and how it affects our animals, and how it affects the waters and the trees, and how it's just a frequency. It's a certain frequency, right? And how when we're in the energy of addiction, we're running from something within ourselves, something that we have separated off as bad or wrong. So then we're in the frequency of the lower astral realm, and the entities and the beings that kind of feed off of that type of energy, because they also believe they're separate, right? So we're a match to that. We're in resonance with that, and then the entities come around, and then they make us do things, and they actually feed the addiction. So there was this whole energy around that was coming through for me that night when he was telling me about that, and it was just kind of like a precursor, kind of like a ding, 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 some of those things swirling around, but I didn't have a real clear picture. So 2 days later, I go down to the shop that I read at in town, where I'm at, and there were two people that came. The first two people that came in, I've never read about addiction before. They came in with the same questions. Two completely separate people, reading for family members who were addicted to meth and crack and these things, that they or other people in their family had recently cut them off, for their own self-alignment and for their own sanity, and just like enough is enough, and this isn't feeding us, and having some kind of conflict around that. But it was very clear from the cards that was the exact action that the person, the addict, needed to crunch them. They were losing their family. They were being shut out. So there were a lot of major arcanas and a lot of cards that were showing like a turning of the wheel because of those actions and because of the crunch that these people were in. So I thought that was really crazy that there were like three. In fact, the first woman I read for, had two people in her family that were addicts. So we read for both of them. And then the next person comes in, we read for their son. And, right after this thing with the dog. And so I always notice patterns, and I'm always like, okay, so there's something going on here, the addiction energy, and on and on. So, okay, there's that. Hold on, it's going to come together. So, let me pull some tarot and see what else. Okay, so we get the Hierophant. So there it is. The Hierophant is that divine timing. These are our soul scripts. That's how I read the Hierophant in my decks. It's just, we all have different, if you're an intuitive reader, you have a relationship with your cards and your decks, and it's not always the traditional meaning. So for me, the Hierophant, and even in this deck, look at it. It's like, it's sanctified. It's like our soul. There are rings on the side here. It's like a contract that your soul contract, what you came in to do. So that's what I was seeing in the readings for the men. There was the addicts. There was the people that were addicted to things. Let's say it that way. I don't want to label them as addicts, but I just said that because it's just easier when I'm trying to talk fast. But anyway, so what was coming through for them was that kind of divine timing, that node point, and everybody playing their perfect role in facilitating that crunch that turns the wheel. Okay, so I'm seeing this also on a collective scale, whatever our addictions are, because addictions really just come from, again, that separation from ourselves, feeling that certain things about ourselves are wrong, are bad, and we sequester them off. They're locked away in a dirty little closet. We don't want to look at them, and yet they're festering and they're causing distorted energy in our field. And then we might want to go over here and do this certain things to take the edge off, and it's just, but it's all the energy of separation. So we all, of course, have a shadow. We all have unmet things, deep wounds, whatever it is. So what I noticed last week, and if you listen to my last reading, that was the beginning of it, where a lot of us were feeling those inner child wounds, whatever it was. Usually it comes down, if you break it down, it comes to like not being seen, not being heard, like being invisible, yeah, at least that's my wound, and those are the wounds of the people that I was connecting with, where we were all kind of feeling the same thing for very different reasons, very different catalysts in our lives. But again, those catalysts in our lives playing their perfect role to get us to kick up that wounding. Okay, and then in kicking up that wounding, we got to sit with it, maybe act out on it, have some clarity on it, make some decisions on it, make some changes. But in the end, it becomes a source of empowerment, because we're feeling it to heal it. So a huge collective of us, because I found out, through online, even afterwards, I'm just doing that to clear the clear the screen. I don't know if it looks too light to you, but it does to me. So anyway, yeah, a lot of people going through that at the same time, which always means that there's a collective move being made. There's like a cyber blast in the energetic field, in the behind the scenes. So a lot about reclaiming those lost parts, loving ourselves rather than turning away from those parts that we don't think are good enough. If somebody triggers those feelings in us at this phase in the game, where we're able to use the consciousness and the self-love that we've attained and shine the light on that darkness with our own self-love, it was a real way to find continuum in our stories, because we can heal from our wounds and we can rebuild a new life and we can move on, and then we kind of just forget about them, and then they'll get triggered at different points, so that we can go in and really heal them. And they'll get triggered usually after we make a couple jumps in consciousness, so that we can apply what we've learned and the light that we have obtained, and hold both the light and the dark at the same time. And that's when the alchemy happens, and that's when things weave together and there's no more separation. So it was a big move. It was a big move for humanity, and a lot of people doing that at that time. So basically, this being the overall energy, it's a time when we're overcoming our addictions to self-hatred, to self-abandonment, and then further out, our addictions to substances, our addictions to whatever it is that we're using to try to fill ourselves from the outside, rather than having everything that we're doing be an expression from the inside and a collaboration to unite deeper from the inside, right? And those addictions can play out in all kinds of ways, of course, big ways like substances that are, like have our families leave us, or have us lose all our money or our house, or, like really dire consequences. Or they can be, smaller things, just ways of, abandoning ourselves, where we might want to do something in a different way or an unconventional way, but we don't feel like we have to stay within the lines, or, not carving our unique path based on our own unique soul signature, and combination of traits and soul attributes that we have, and weaving our own life creatively, but just not doing that, trying to make other people happy, worrying about what other people think. Those are addictions too. Addiction to self-abandonment, to whatever extreme that goes. So definitely something in this energy right now around meeting those lost parts of ourselves, embracing them, bringing them back home, remothering or refathering ourselves, which is what I was talking about in that last reading about the dark goddess energy, those places that we don't want to go to. We don't want to go to them to the point where we can create all these addictions and all these distortions and all these self-abandonments. So this energy in the last week or two being really, really supportive to coming home and being able to unite our polarities in a way that we can start creating and living in our lives. So there's a lot of freedom energy in this as well, doing things the way we want to do them in our own creative way, where our soul signature and our past can really flow, because we're not clogging up the field with separations or with addictions or diversions. Okay. So then, the next card that we get is the Chariot. That's the perfect card, because the Chariot is a card of moving forward. But why? Because you have both your light and your dark working together. Nothing is sequestered off as wrong. There's no spiritual bypassing going on here, or denying yourself because you feel you're not spiritual or integral or nothing, just all the distortions, all of the distortions that have come in our world, where we're not allowing, we're not embracing those lost parts. When we embrace those lost parts, we can truly move forward. This is a major arcana. So 2 major arcana. So again, just like I was saying in the reading for those men, the major arcanas are a time of node points, and where big energies are moving and big shifts are happening, where it's part of that soul contract, where this is a time where things are moving forward from an integrated way, because we're getting the crunches that we need. So again, those people in those readings, those family members cutting off their cutting off the people that were struggling because it was just a thing they needed to do for themselves, is that message again of what is right for you, what is in the highest good for you, is in the highest good for everyone else. Even if you love them and you're attached to them and you don't want to hurt them, it's like you do what's right for you, and then you allow the pieces to unravel, you allow the ripples from that, and then you reassess and you take the next step that's right for you. We're leading from our heart center. Again, the lotus that is birthed in the middle of the polarities being in alignment together, and we're letting that go. That's the engine, that's the engine. We sit on our thrones and we allow our hearts to guide us, even if we contradict ourselves or we go one way and then we're just kind of frazzled. We're following that spirit. It might look frazzled, it might look chaotic, it might look mercurial, but we're following our spirit guidance. We're following it, and we're not, because when you're only doing the linear, you're really only doing one side. You're trying to be a good girl or a good boy, or you're trying to fit in or not upset people, or worrying about what other people think, or whatever it is. But when you allow that other part of you, that shadow part of you to come, that shadow part of you that wants what you want, or knows that you deserve to take care of yourself, there's a continuum of light and dark, but there's also a continuum of darkness. There's balanced sacred darkness that helps you to defend yourself, that helps you to protect yourself. And then it can go so far over here, where it's you're power hungry and you're hurting people and you don't care about anybody else. But a lot of us will judge healthy darkness. And so again, a lot of the dark goddess energy happening right now, that Lilith energy, opening up that cage and having a conversation with those parts of ourselves and being like, well, why do I feel that's wrong? And why do I stop myself from doing that? And what if I allowed this thing that's in the cage, then I wouldn't have to do this other thing that I'm doing that is much more harmful to myself or to others, and just really letting everything out, putting everything out on the table, and allowing it all to be there and sitting with it. And even the messy stuff, and that's what I was talking about last time for those of us that were going through that kind of homesickness, and that the triggers and the emotions, just like I was saying, just it's raw and it's wild and it's messy and it's bloody and it's muddy, and just allow it to be, because that's how it is when you're alchemizing. You're marinating in everything, and there's contradictions and there's pain and there's sadness and there's confusion. And it's like the 8 of Cups were coming up a lot in readings last week. The 8 of Cups is like the 8 octopus arms, where you have like every emotion possible and they're all contradicting. You don't know what to do with it. You just have to sit in it and let it kind of have its way with you, which is what I was talking about last week. So now on the other side of that is this integration, because we allowed ourselves to dissolve again, that caterpillar soup, where the clarity starts to come. And so that's what I'm seeing. I actually powwowed with 2 of my sacred sisters is how I want to say it right now, because that's what they are to me this morning. 2 people that were also going through that wave at the same time that I was, and we were all getting our separate realizations in our own lives and putting them together, and they all matched up, and it was just this wider perspective, and all of us coming into this wholeness, those of us holding those goddess codes, holding that divine feminine energy, coming in written and coded to walk this forward, to walk the path of the heart forward, are doing it together. We're all doing it together. And although it's individualized, because we are the God sparks of the one being, we're still in that one space, that one mind space. And really, really beautiful in collaborating and putting things together. So, and then wanting to bring that forward in a reading where I'm just not showing up the right way, but that's okay. So here we go. Page of Pentacles, a brand new path. I always talk kind of fast. I'm tripping over my words a little bit because I am running out of light, but I did want to get out at least a little bit today. So the Page of Pentacles is, a brand new path, and it's interesting because I'm noticing right now this geometry that he's standing on and the geometry that he's holding. So although it's a new path, and the page is often sort of like unstable, and you might fall off, and it can be sort of like a threshold energy where like you're kind of on it, but then you might go backwards. This one in this deck, it doesn't come through that way, because even though it's a new path, he's very balanced. She's balancing on one foot, and she's standing there up on a like a tree stump, and it looks like it's pretty high, and and yet, you know, this same shape she's holding, like she has it solid, she has that geometry in her. And having that geometry in her, because she's woven her light and her dark, and she's integrated, and she's birthed her own divine spark within her, she has the codes activated in her heart. And so those codes are matched on the path that she's at. She's standing on solid ground, even if it's a little precarious, you know, even if she's up high and it's on this tree stump, and she has it. So we might feel a little bit precarious, but there's something about these energies where a lot of us are anchoring. We're anchoring in the geometry of our own souls, and we're starting to walk forward in ways that match us. They match us, you know, and there might, or at the beginning phase, there might be some reconfiguration or boundary drawing or parameter drawing, but there's a shift that happens. And every time we do an alchemy like this, especially like a really deep one, like is possible and open in the energies right now. Some of us have already done it. Some of us might be stepping forward, because those of us that have already done it have put out the energetic signature of this kind of energy, this wholeness around this certain piece, this certain doorway that's been opened for the collective to walk through whenever they're ready. You know, some people go first, you know, and then they might grab other people along and be, come on, we're doing this, you know, in your relationships, or at least you're just kind of like, again, anchoring that template by standing on it. So there's another message with that imagery as well. You know, if you have those codes activated in you because you've done these passages, or this passage was a really big one, then you're anchoring that down by standing solidly, just standing there, holding it. Standing there, she's not doing anything. She's holding it here, and she's holding her position on top of that geometry. She's anchoring it. And so that's a lot of what's going on right now too. We're anchoring the new template that we activated within ourselves, that we achieved within ourselves, and we're allowing it, like, you know, the roots of the tree. You know, this tree still has roots underneath here, and the roots go out and they connect with the other tree's roots, and the mycelium connects, and there's still that whole network of connectedness underneath the ground that you can't see and you wouldn't even think about because that tree's cut down. Is that a tree stump? That's how I'm seeing it. It might actually not be, but that's how I'm seeing it. So that's what we're going with. And so, yeah, there's still, you're planting it into the unity grid, the oneness grid, which is the truth of reality, despite all of the distortions. Again, talking about the illusions of separations, the separations that we feel are true, but they're really not. All of the hijacks and cover-ups through our society and through our world, and all the ways that covers the natural harmonics and the natural beauty and harmony of this realm, covering that up. But that doesn't mean that it's not still there. So all of us that are coming through, again, this geometry and this geometry are the same. So here's the geometry, the harmonics of the earth, the natural harmonics. And here's those of us that are tapping into that, tapping into that through our own heart centers, through that, our own inner alchemy, whether it's through just spending time in nature or valuing the right things or not wasting your time on things that are distorted or not of the soul. You value the soul life, you value your own soul, you value both the light and the dark and everything that's here. You start to match the natural harmonics of the earth. You start to raise that frequency within yourself. You start to match that frequency within the earth, and you raise that frequency within the earth as well. So we're all contributing to the ascension of our own souls, but the ascension of the earth, back into remembrance, back into our own remembrance, back into the remembrance of what's true here, shaking off the cover-up, shaking off the tendency to keep looking to the false light, going to the light and banging up against it, and it's never going to feed you because it's external, finding it from within ourselves. I love that I'm wearing yellow, actually. Finding it within ourselves and no longer looking outside to all the things. Oh, look over here, and it's going to be so great, and you need to do this, and then you need to do this, and you need to achieve this, and my one of the women and I today were talking about all the trainings that everybody feels that they need to do, but it's like we come in coded with the missions that we're here for, and we've had lifetimes of trainings, for the things that we do. We come in with memories, we come in with natural inclination, so it's like allowing those things to develop from within you and not feeling like you're unworthy and you have to keep looking outside of yourself, allowing your soul to express and to expand and to be free to make mistakes and be free to do something off the wall that somebody else might not like, or whatever it is, but bringing yourself forward and not hiding parts of yourself, not feeling that you're wrong and you have to put on this posturing and this perfection, but allowing all the mud and blood to mix and to come forward however it does. That's how we get on this new path. That surrender now. Yeah, exactly. Surrendering to the fullness of who we are, dropping the programs, dropping the conditioning, dropping the convention. So this is Lilith, this is Lilith energy. And I posted a whole montage about Lilith today on my Facebook page, and all these different ways, that Lilith supports us and being, embracing the taboo, embracing all the things that we're told we're not supposed to, and if you were raised Catholic like I was, then man, you were going to hell for everything you wanted to do. And so, just bringing all that back and allowing it a place at the table and allowing those two things to weave together. We're not living only from our darkness, but we're not living only from our light. We're allowing them to play, and we're trusting. We don't have to go through a linear, corralled way of being so that we can keep ourselves in check. No, we allow things to unfold. We trust our hearts. We trust our higher wisdom. We trust our higher connection, and we allow the path to be walked as we walk it. But it really only works when we let go. When we just let go and we allow ourselves. And sometimes that means making mistakes and, and spending some time in the darkness to balance out the polarity of the too much time we spent in the light, spiritual bypassing, but trusting that process and trusting that it weaves together. A lot of the, in some of the decks, the Page of Pentacles has an infinity sign. So again, that's kind of like this too, as above, so below. It's all woven together. The left and the right, the polarities, they're all woven together. So okay, let me pull some oracle here. Let's see what we get. The Wonder Hunter. Yeah, exactly. Like you're open to the adventure of life. You show up. The stag. Kind of leading the way and riding your reindeer or whatever it is, but you're kind of leaping into life. So that's this too. This is like the Chariot is often like that divine timing of like it's ripe. It's time to pick it. It's ripe, it's time to pick it, and you just pick it, and you're out on the edge of your own threshold, you're out on the periphery of your own life, and you're stepping forward onto it. You're the Wonder Hunter. 4 and 2, that's a 6. So 6 is also a number of anchoring down. So there it is again, the anchoring down your own codes. How do we anchor down our own God codes? We live them. We live from our soul. We don't live from the program. We don't live from what we think other people want from us. We don't live from trying to impress people or be impressive. We just live from our own spark, our own spark that we find within us when we embrace all of us. We surrender the story. We surrender the not good enough. We surrender and we allow ourselves to marinate in our own darkness until our own light comes and saves us. It's all within us. It's all within us. We're not looking external. We're not running anymore. We activate our true divine spark and we anchor it down. So this being a card of anchoring down as well, we anchor our own unique spark by living it forward, by being on the thresholds and just jumping into life. So that's what I'm feeling, and that's a real message of freedom as well. Freedom to be you, freedom to do what you want, and knowing. And so this came up in a reading too, like what's in the highest good for you is in the highest good for all. A lot of us are trained, especially through certain spirituality, that altruism where you have to do for everybody else, and you're trying to like caretake everybody else, and you're trying to be a nice person, and it's like selfish to do your own thing, but we really only know ourselves. Trying to caretake for anybody else is just projection anyway, projection or conditioning. So when we just tend to ourselves, then we're taking care of our hologram, because everything is a reflection of us anyways. So when we align with us, everything can change to reflect our wholeness rather than our addiction, rather than our separation from ourselves. You want a divine partnership, come home to yourself. Come home to your darkness and embrace your darkness. You want a tribe, do the same thing. It's like everything that's going to match you is going to come in when you embrace yourself. So really beautiful, and that's the energy that I'm feeling, that a lot of people are moving into that. There's just something about, so we had the 12/12 12/12 portal energy yesterday, and then today being Friday the 13th. So I had learned today that it's also traditionally St. Lucia Day. So it was like the feminine energy bringing light back leading up to the solstice. So the beginning of the light bearer, the feminine light bearer, and so there's something about that too, moving into the holy days where we're coming into the darkest time of the year. So we're going into our darkness, and my daughter and I were talking about this yesterday, how, we don't want to go anywhere. We want to stay in our jammies all day long. We want to just sleep and we don't want to leave our house. We don't want to leave our house, and yet probably nobody does. But then we're conditioned to, just we got to keep being productive and go about life and do all this. And then we got to create holidays where we have to drink a lot and eat a lot of sweets and, and buy a lot of presents and be all distracted, when the natural rhythm of the season and the energy, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, is to be kind of inward, to be inward. And it's like, it's like every time this time of year, I'll see on Facebook, like I always have all these like sort of like dark goddess posts, and I'm just kind of like moody, and like I changed my profile photo, like I'm not smiling. I have like 3 profile photos where I'm not smiling and I look kind of like mean or mischievous or whatever it looks like to people. But it's like, it's my moon face, it's my dark face, and it's like that needs to be shown too, And so here we are in this time of year, everything is supporting us to go into the dark. The days are like 5 minutes long now, and then we're in the dark. And of course I have all my like ambiance lighting to try to take the edge off of that. And it's like, no, just sit in the darkness. And we miss the opportunity. It's the same thing with the dark moon. Like I always notice right before the full moon, I used to feel like really vulnerable and kind of like, I don't know what's going on and I don't want to go anywhere. And now I just go with it. It's like, yeah, this is the dark moon where it's dark, and we need those times. Everything is cyclical. So it's like the seed needs to be under the ground. It needs that compression. The coal needs the compression for the diamond. We need, all the things that we need in the cyclical. And if, as humans, we often try to bypass them and we try to avoid them, and then we're disconnected from the natural harmonics and the natural supportive energies of this realm of nature on this planet. We're living out of sync. And then we have all these addictions and self-abandonment. So the more that we can honor the cycles and the natural energy from where we're at in the seasons or in the day or in the moon phases or in our own cycles, and honor them, then the more integrated we're going to be, and the more in touch with our hearts we're going to be, and the less we're going to be in this addictive energy. So surrendering to what is. But again, I feel like there's been a really big move with that. And so moving into the darkest phase of the year, and this being the opportunity and the energy right now that we can embrace. And so if we are kind of resisting it and feeling like, oh my gosh, like even my daughter was like, she's 17, she's about to be 18. And she's like, I just want to drink wine. Isn't that what people do in the winter? Let's drink some wine, and like another friend talking about that as well, just kind of like this addictive kind of energy coming up. And it's like a lot of that is when we're resisting the call of the dark goddess, when we're resisting the call of the darker energy within us, because we think it's wrong, and it's not wrong. So just embracing that. What's the next card we get? Protection. That's interesting. Protection. Let me clarify that. I always feel like we're like protecting ourselves. We're like protecting ourselves from having to confront, what we don't want to see in ourselves. But let me just clarify that and see what else wants to be said. There's a silencing kind of energy with this card. She has a hand. It's not even her hand. There's something silencing her. That's our society. That's our self-judgments. That's the voices in our head, from this or other lifetimes, other people that have, the church or whatever it was that tells you you're wrong. It's still, those echoes are still kind of in there in the field. And so when we do get triggered and we have passages like a lot of us had last week, or I can't even keep track of time now because I feel like things are so different. Like I've jumped into a whole new thing that I think it was last week though. And so, so when we do come into a passage like that, it's like it helps us to see the ways that we're still kind of holding ourselves back. We can be really healthy and we can be integrated and we can be doing a lot of great things, but there are often still things hiding, if we haven't done, even if we've done a shit ton of shadow work. Like I've had probably like 5,000 dark nights of the soul. Like my life has been one big sewer crawl, for the last 20 years, but still there are things that, the really deepest of things, that deepest core wound. And I feel like that's what came up for a lot of us. We got to see where we were silent, see where we silenced ourselves. And we might be really free in certain areas, but there might be other areas where there's still some wounding, So the next card that we get is the Ace of Coins, which is interesting because the Ace of Coins is also a new path, but the Ace of Coins is one that you've earned, and you don't have to worry about, it's not a threshold moment. It's like what I was saying. I feel like I've crossed over onto this whole other platform. That's what this is indicating this. But it's a different deck, but there is a lot of the same imagery with these discs, and these are both pentacles. So, it's like It's a similar energy. It's a similar energy, but it's indicating that like we are new to this path, but we're solidly on this path. And this message has come up before. We're solidly on this path. This has a kind of in the garden feel to me with these roses. Again, the divine feminine energy, the return into the garden. Who was cast out of the garden but Lilith? And why was she cast out? Because she did things her own way. She didn't play by the rules. And so then we live our lives feeling like, oh, I better play by the rules and I better do things the way people want me to, or I'm going to be outcast out of the garden. And then meanwhile, we're looking outside of ourselves and trying to do what other people want, and then we develop this self-abandonment, blah, 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 blah. To me right now in this moment, this is like the bitch is back. Lilith is let back in the garden. Those of us that are integrating the darkness within ourselves and finding ways to weave it together with our light, we're allowing her back in the garden where all of us can play, where we have our co-creative powers back. If we're only one polarity, we can't create. We're lopsided. We're either, creating more of this or we're creating more of this. But if a true creation is both, polarity is everywhere. It's woven into the fabric of this realm. So when we have both of our polarities intact, we're creating. We're not recreating. We're not regurgitating more light. We're not regurgitating more dark. Only with the light and the dark together can we create something new. We create something new, and that new is ourselves. That new is our own divine blueprint. The blueprint that we hold that matches. It's like a puzzle piece. We all need to put our puzzle piece into this earth grid. Bring it down. Number 6. Bring it down and anchor it. Bring your contribution forward, and you can only do that if you've embraced the darker parts of yourself that you were rejecting. No longer rejecting. So, okay, so that's a really clear message. Let me pull Goddess of the Moon card. Okay, so we get, oh yeah, that's cool. So we get 2 of them. Yeah, okay, so that's kind of explaining the other card. I was sort of more going off the imagery. We get discernment. We've been getting this a lot. We got that in the last reading, I think. It's a number 10 card, a card of completion. So just discernment and protection. Okay, so protection and protection, So what it seems like to me, hold on, let me look at these a minute. Hold on a sec, because there's like a really specific energy. Oh, and this is another 6 card as well, bringing things down. Hold on a sec. Yeah, we're protecting this new path. It's a path that we're solidly on, but we are new to it. So it's kind of like that seed that comes up. That seed that comes up and it's new, and we have to protect it. Even the way they're holding this, they're holding it, they're protecting it with their hands. There's an energy of protection. We're holding this. We have to, and then these 2 cards, framing them both being protection cards with their energy. And the thing about this card, and I always point this out to people when they get it in a reading, is it doesn't look protected. There's a bird's nest here, and there's a woman in it, and the nest is really big, and there's this little bird who's actually quite big compared to the nest and the human. It's bigger than the human, but it's carrying it up, and it's carrying it up in the night sky, and none of it really makes sense. And that's kind of how this energy can feel, this new energy, where it doesn't really make sense to the logical mind. And I know I talk about this a lot, especially whenever I get this card, but it doesn't make sense to the logical mind. But knowing that it is protected, knowing that it is safe to walk this path, that you are protected, whatever, because if we're living from our if we're allowing those parts that we've kind of kept locked away as bad, if we're allowing them, it's like the Black Swan. Have you ever seen that movie? I want to watch that movie again with what was her name? The woman that was in V for Vendetta and Star Wars. I can't remember her name. Oh my God, whatever. Anyway, the Black Swan, she's the white swan, and she's really good and pure, and, she's playing the role of the Black Swan. She has to get in touch with her darkness, and all of her life becomes shamanic, and that's how it is for us too. We're getting in touch with our dark side, which is only the parts that we pushed away, and we're allowing them to integrate back in to help us create our true spark. When we're allowing them back in, we can often like manifest and create situations that do feel kind of scary and kind of strange, and like weird things, to reclaim your power and to meet those parts of yourself. And you can feel a little vulnerable and a little unsteady, but just a message like coming in at the end here around protection. You are protected and you are guided. Your higher self is guiding. You can trust the wholeness of yourself. You don't have to lock away parts of yourself, because a lot of us fear, like, well, I don't want to hurt other people, or I don't want to get hurt myself. But we actually hurt ourselves more when we have parts of ourselves sequestered away, and we start doing this sort of like addictive, grasping outside of ourselves energy, where we get out of alignment with our own center, our own God spark. So to allow all of our parts out, it actually protects us. That's what protects us. We're more protected when we have all of ourselves, when we allow it all there, when we're not shoving pieces away. And I know a lot of us aren't. Again, it's not that we're like functioning out of those wounds. Like, we might not have like felt or functioned out of those wounds in like years or decades, but it's still, it's almost like, in my friend and I today were talking about this, where you move on and you heal, and you are living a healthy life, and you have, it's like you have your past and you have your present, but there's almost like this little fracture in between the past and the present, and then your future dreams as well, because somewhere along the way you just kind of got healthier. But it's almost like sometimes you have to go, not almost, you have to go back into that original wounding. Sometimes you have to go the whole way back and just feel like you're 5 years old again, even if you haven't felt that way in a really long time. And again, there's those catalysts that get you to do that. You go back in, but this time you don't, because often when you have trauma, you kind of have to just like there it is again, you have to shut the door on it so you can heal. And you do heal, and you're living a different, a different healthier life. And it's like one lifetime, another lifetime, but then there's not continuity between your life stream, between your path, between your soul. There's a separation. Phase 1, phase 2. So when we go back into that wounding and we feel it so primally, where you don't even want to be here anymore, you're shaking or whatever it is, and it's like PTSD, where you're like, this is so extreme compared to like what the trigger was, what's going on. It's a soul retrieval. And then you walk yourself back out, where you don't have to shut the door on it anymore. You leave the door open and you walk yourself back out with the consciousness that you have. And so that's the thing, a lot of us will have that trauma. We'll shut the door on the trauma, and we'll build our light body. We'll build our light body. We'll build our light. We'll build our love. We'll have all these devotional spiritual practices, and everything's light and love. And and then at some point, you have enough tools, and you have enough stability in your light that you gotta go back, and it's not just like a one-time thing, right? You go back and you do a little piece, and you go back and you do a little piece, and you're weaving. But something about this time, I know for a lot of us, is we really went back, and that's what I was talking about last time too. You go back and you get those gems, you get those gems. Well, what you're really getting is the continuity of your life path. Where things aren't separated anymore, and so you go back and you get it, and you walk it out with your light. You hold your own hand with your reparenting and the mothering and the awareness and the consciousness, or the fathering that you have right now, and you walk yourself out. So there's no more closed doors. There's no more skeletons. There's no more locked anything, and it might have just been like one tiny little locked thing that you had to go back and get, but you went and got it, and it creates so much energy and so much flow because it's not separated off. And so I think that's why the addiction card came up first. I see this as an addiction card because we all know how moths are with light. And so, just that this is a time where we're really able to heal, these addictions, because we're retrieving ourselves. So it's interesting because one of the people that I read for, the grandmother, she wanted to help her grandson. She was the only one that didn't shut him out, and she feeds him, and he steals from her, and all these things. But she wanted me to do a clearing on him, and so I am, and it felt right. It felt right. And I'm going to their house. I don't want him coming to my house because I work out of my home because he's a little unstable. But I know from the energy that it's a time where it's worth investing in that. At a different time or a different person, it might not be. It might just be, just what's the point? You go clean things up and then it just falls back again. But there's something about the energy right now, and something about his cards in that reading, but also indicating the energy right now, because it's matching up in all the ways that I just talked about, where it's a really wonderful time to come home to yourself, where you can kick those addictions, or they just melt away, because there's a soul retrieval, soul reunion energy going on. So if you haven't done that yet, if you are still kind of like, you might feel it calling. There's this Joni Mitchell song, what's it called? I talked about it in a reading like a year and a half ago, one of the first readings that I did, but Sweet Fire and Lady Release, and I think she's actually talking about heroin or something like that, which is funny because I was listening to Lana Del Rey's Heroin song today, which I don't know if I ever heard, So again, it's like, when things come, these patterns, where it's kind of everywhere. But basically, in that Joni Mitchell song, she's also talking about like when she calls to you, when the dark goddess calls to you, she says, you can come now. You can come now, or you can come later. You can go willingly, or you can be dragged. So it's like you will hit a wall at some point with your addictions, like these men that I was reading. They hit a wall. They lost their families. They lost their homes. And you can turn around when you hit rock bottom, or you can turn around when the energies are supportive beforehand. And we're all doing it in our own perfect ways, in our own perfect timing. But there is a lot of that going on right now, and it's really beautiful because you think about the astral field as well. Because what I was saying in the beginning, before I really got in my flow, and I kind of felt a little disjointed, I was trying to say too much at once. But to go back to that with the, when you're vibrating on the frequency of separation from yourself, you're a match to the lower astral plane, where entities, because they believe that they're separate as well, and they're disembodied, and they're attracted to that, and they can often feed the addictions, and they can attach to people, and attach to animals, and attach to things, and just create mayhem, because that's their realm, where that separation puts us in sync with that energy. And so when we heal and we come into that unity where we're not separated anymore, we're out of range of those frequencies. So a lot of people that have had a lot of psychic attack, or a lot of entities or energies around them, it's just a reflection of the lost parts, the rejected parts that you have in yourself. So even those beings are allies, because they're really not separate from God or from the wholeness of all. They just think that they are, and they think that they're doing whatever they're doing, but everything is in service to the light, because they're highlighting those areas where we're not whole with ourselves, and we can destroy ourselves. We can destroy ourselves, and many people do, but many people at this time are not. A lot of people that are in that deep hole are finding the way out. They're finding the way out because these energies are supporting us. And so that's what I was going to say. The more of us that are doing that and finding this unity within, and clearing up our own energy fields, the more we're cleaning up the lower astral as well, because those beings aren't having as much access. They're not having as much control. They don't have a food source anymore, because people are coming into their sovereignty, and they're co-creating. So it's changing. I'm just getting like at the end here, really deep and multidimensional here, but it's cleaning up the astral plane as well, so that a lot of people that are in this space where they're not able to do this deep work, those of us that are doing this, we're helping these people as well, because we're cleaning up the lower astral field, because a lot of those entities have to leave because they don't have as much of a food source, so they're going after where you can. So if you are having a really imbalanced into the dark, without enough light experience, it's going to get harder and harder and harder, because there's just not as many food sources. But even that becomes a catalyst, because you're hitting your crunches where you alchemize. And so, but again, a lot of the people that are alchemizing, cleaning up that lower astral plane as well, and so there's just less attack, less it's clearer, because it's all a reflection of us anyway. So there's less like shadow projections into the astral. Let's put it that way. When people come in to their into their unity, their shadow is not projected out as a feeding demon. You know what I mean? Because it is an entity outside of ourselves, but it's a reflection of us. It's like a projection of us. And there were so many of them that they took on a life of their own. So the more people coming into that, the less that there are. So it's just getting easier to manage. So that just being kind of, I don't know if I explained that well, or if I had the right words for that, but it's kind of like a behind the scenes view of the astral plane and of the lower 4D. And, myself, I've had issues with that my whole life, because I had a lot of fear, and a lot of that being because of this kind of stuff, where I was told I was wrong for things that, were just a part of me, so I had a lot of separation. I had a lot of fear. I had a lot of self-judgment. And so I have a lot of attacks, I had a lot of attacks. And so I'm aware of it. I can see when other people have them around them. I can feel when, animals do, or when, when there's just stuff, going on where there are attachments, so again, a lot of that loosening, and things are changing. The playing field is changing. I'm at 43 minutes. Okay, let me pull one closing message. I'm going to do an angel card to close on, raise it back up here. And so we get communion. Yeah, exactly. Communion with ourselves, communion with others, communion with all. And that's what it's all about, bringing everything back home. And of course, it's a fractal. When we're united within, we're united without. And the more people that are that God fractal of union within, the more divine partnerships there are, the more holistic, harmonious communities, and the way it spreads out. So it's all an inside job. If you want to change the world or your world, change yourself, come home to yourself and embrace those lost parts, those parts that you've been taught, again, like this, that you've been taught were wrong, and then you put it on yourself. You then tell yourself they're wrong. Take your hand off, let your voice out, let your soul out, let your expression out. Do things your own way, and don't worry about what people think. Again, it's coming into the Aquarian age where we all live from our own unique spark, and we create community together by doing that. So thank you so much for listening. And and I hope that you're all feeling more stable if you have been hit hard by these energies. And if not, I hope that this message was supportive and validating and encouraging to you. And I will see you next time if I do. Okay, much love. Bye-bye.